Hello and welcome to Tiny Bunny. Despite the cute name, this is actually, as you might have guessed, a horror visual novel, and as such is going to get quite dark. This is done by a Russian dev team, so you're going to hear Russian voice acting, and I hope you're hearing my voice okay, because I recently actually got new headphones, so I'm not totally confident on the audio levels being okay, because everything sounds quieter to me, but we'll see. I'm not going into this completely blind. I've seen about maybe the first hour of this in a stream, but I'm pretty sure he didn't finish even the first episode, as far as I remember. This game is episodic. There will be 5 episodes in total, and right now only 3 are out. Yeah, so it's not even complete yet, but I've been really intrigued, really interested in this game for quite some time now, so I wanted to play it, even though Steam still lists it as early access. But yeah, let us just hop in. The wind clawed at my window all night long. It wandered the fields and howled like a hungry beast. An endless song weaved from all sorts of voices, shrill, gentle, sneery, twined in the air. They were shouting and laughing and arguing about something. Someone was running through the snow while casting long shadows that would occasionally creep close to my bed. Our house had a mind of its own, the creaky old mind of a building that had seen a lot in its days and was seemingly trying to share its wisdom with the inhabitants. The lonely house faced the forest, and the dark green thicket gazed back with its hollow eyes, rustling, whizzing, swaying back and forth. One could come out and stand at the edge of the forest to reassure themselves. There was nobody behind the crooked trees. Fuzzy silhouettes swaying in the wind couldn't possibly do any harm. It's just a play of light and shadow. Just a play. I knew it was just my imagination. I was already 12 after all. Still. Episode 1. The Owl Will Arrive.
Убери книгу немедленно! Сколько раз говорила, не читай за столом, вредно. Сидишь, сутулился весь.
Okay, yeah, there are some interactive elements to this, even though it's mainly a visual novel. Hide the book. I didn't protest and put the book about Conan the Barbarian aside. I was stuck on a line I couldn't understand after reading it 3 times anyway. Olya had already finished her breakfast and was munching on some cookies. She was so enthusiastic, she almost looked like your typical girl from commercials.
Пока не съешь, из-за стола не встанешь.
I, on the other hand, was still trying to drill a hole in the plate with my eyes, as if it would make the porridge disappear. Hazy anxiousness welled up inside. All because of the previous sleepless night, the black forest around our house, and the gloomy wind. The longer I waited, the colder the lumpy white substance became. It looked like a jellyfish from the Cousteau Odyssey. I love that show. I wonder how horrifying the bottom of the ocean is. Or how cold the Black Forest is at night. The spoon fell out of my hand. Mom showered me with a cold glare from her green eyes.
Что я говорила?
Я достану.
I had 10 seconds to catch my breath before battling the nasty porridge once again. I felt around for the spoon. What is this, carved on the other side of the table? Karina. Huh, that's my mom's name. I guess she carved it out with something pointy when she was little. She sure was a rascal, damaging the furniture like that. She would scold me for a week if I did something similar, though. Should I remind her about it? No, she's been in a bit of bad mood lately. I imagined her being my age, sitting under this table. I wonder, was Mom afraid of the dark back then? Or the sounds coming from the attic? Or the thick forest? I imagined my grandma coming into my little Mom's room, sitting at the edge of her bed, where Olya sleeps nowadays, and saying this in a soft, smooth voice.
Тайга — особое место, дитятка. Она к тебе присматривается, принюхивается. Словно хочет понять, что ты за зверь такой. Понравишься, в беде не бросит. А будешь проказничать, схватит за бочок и утащит с собой под землю. Тут и дело с концом.
Grandma was caring. She never fought with anybody, never yelled, never swore. Those were the times without the maddening screams until late at night, without smashed dishes and mutual accusations. Our parents used to love each other back then. I remember listening in on one of their conversations by chance. They were talking about Grandma getting prepared for her funeral. She had already bought a casket. And she called it her cute funeral box. It waited for its time in the closet, patiently. It was black, upholstered with meat-colored material on the inside. I saw it when my grandma was getting buried. The house didn't change since the time she was alive. Only all of the photos were gone. Glass-covered pictures with grey faces of my ancestors. They all had a dead but watchful look in their eyes. I crawled out from under the table. Olya was done with her cookies and was looking at my share like a sly woodland critter. I turned my gaze toward the frosted window. There were a lot of dark pines outside, but they didn't grab my attention. The pattern of frost formed a picture on the glass.
Оля, гляди, лиса! Где?
It looked almost like those optical illusion thingies they put on the back of student notebooks. A mixture of lines at first glance, but if you blur your vision a little bit and look under a certain angle...
Да не на улице, на стекле. Смотри, вот нос, вот.
Ну-ка, доедай.
Да, сейчас.
By the way, I hope it's okay that I'm not doing additional voices on this dialogue. There are already voices, it's just not in English. A while back I did a poll on my Twitter account because I wasn't quite sure how to handle this. And it was somewhat split, but the majority preferred not to have the dialogue be read out in English again. But let me know what you think about this.
Я ничего не вижу.
Живо! Совсем немного осталось.
Вот! Но все равно не похоже.
А я говорю, похоже.
Не-а!
Похоже.
Прекратите! Ну что за дети?
Now I couldn't see the fox either. It disappeared. Went away. Only the frosty patterns, similar to stretched out nettle leaves, kept creeping up the glass. My dad entered the kitchen with long, measured steps. I want to have a beard like his when I grow up. Mom would always ask, jokingly, "Come on, shave it off, it stings." This was so long ago. Nowadays, rumbling doors and witty comebacks were an everyday occurrence. Olia always covers her ears whenever she hears something like, "What's the point in all this?" through the walls. "It's all for your sake," Dad would reply, "for the sake of our family." I always caught every second in fear of hearing that most dreaded, the deadliest word that started with a D. D-I-V-O. I don't even want to finish it. I get that it's a fear as a kid, and my parents are divorced. They divorced when I was 11. But it's not the end of the world, and to be honest, I think, just staying together for the kids when you don't realistically see a chance of your relationship getting better, it's not necessarily the best choice. Sometimes separating is better. Just saying. It was scary to imagine that me and my little sister could be torn apart and taken into two different families. Okay, that's a valid concern.
Да что твоя лиса? Вот у меня на окне сова!
Опять ты со своей совой.
Так ты же вчера мне верил!
Никто ключи от машины не видел? Вроде оставлял на подоконнике.
Вроде. Вроде оставлял, вроде нет. Вроде взрослый мужчина, отец двоих детей, а вроде...
And that means he cannot displace his key sometimes?
Перестань, пожалуйста, Карина. Дай мне спокойно собраться.
В корзине твои ключи, возле телефона.
Огромное тебе человеческое спасибо. Антон, ешь быстрее, а то как мученик сидишь.
А сова?
Не было там никакой совы.
Была! Глазюки огромные! Во! И светятся!
Olia sprung up from the chair and placed her hands on her little face, imitating a pair of eyes with her fingers, the size of an apple each.
В прошлом году бабай в шкафу, сейчас сова.
Bye-bye.
Но я же видела!
Wait, so we do have a glossary here. Some facts. Babai, in Slavic folklore, a nocturnal spirit used by parents to threaten their ill-behaving children. Charming. Olia shifted her gaze back and forth from Dad to Mom to me, but couldn't find any support.
А ты не думала подружиться с ней, нет? Вымышленными мышами покормить, например?
Не подначивай ребенка. Просто мала еще, и спать одна боится.
Olia pouted her lips in rebellion and rushed into the hallway. The staircase that led to the second floor creaked. Mom gave Dad a strict look. Oh, that look in her eyes. It's so uncomfortable to be pinned under it. Dad just snorted in reply and left, ringing with the keys he just found. A minute had passed, and the theme song from The Little Mermaid echoed through the house. It was stored on an incredibly worn-out cassette tape, which Dad already had to glue together once. Yeah, we had to repair mine back in the day as well. It's so easy to fix objects, by gluing them back together, for example. But how do you fix a relationship? Yeah, that takes a bit more effort. Mom moved to the living room, and I was left alone, anxiously stealing glances at the window. Olya had trouble sleeping ever since we moved to this house. She would toss and turn or curl up into a ball under her blanket. Sometimes she would jump up in the middle of the night and turn on the VCR. Cartoons helped to take her mind off all the troubles we had with the move and our parents. And then Olya said she saw that giant flying monster outside her window. She became obsessed with it. Our parents did everything in their power. They tried every little trick to get rid of those ridiculous fears. Olya refused to sleep alone and didn't believe that the owl was just one of her nightmares. After last night, I was unsure what to make of my sister's words, what to think of it myself. Can nightmares be infectious? That night, I couldn't get a wink of sleep and ended up thinking of what to expect from my new school. There were a couple of days left before the beginning of a new term. My imagination drew long, twisting hallways that led to a classroom full of kids. But all the students behind the desks were simply dark figures, cut out using a template. Circular holes gaped in the middle of their faces, and pairs of eyes blinked inside those holes. It was as if some completely different creatures were looking at me from behind the flat, black silhouettes. Their cruel glares, filled with icy sneers, made me shiver from head to toe. Will I survive here? Won't they gang up on me and beat me down? Stomp on me with their bloodied shoes? The damn school can burn for all I care. I just wished for anything to happen to it. Doesn't really matter what. I didn't want to go there that badly. I didn't want to see people who are just itching to smack me on the head, trip me up, think of a new offensive name for me, worse than the previous one. I felt like the glasses I wore made me an outsider, or some sort of a monster. My gaze slid across the drawings hanging on the walls. I couldn't consider myself a great artist, but Olya begged me to hang them. Drawing was the only thing that made me happy as of late. The small circle of friends I had also enjoyed my paintings, and they promised to call me from time to time. Sometimes I imagine Mom picking up the phone and saying in a cold voice, "You've got the wrong number." Or, "Anton is not around." Anton is not around. I imagined my future classmates lying in their beds, just like me, listening to the howls of invisible werewolves outside their windows. Maybe my new classmates were like me after all? But who would ever like a boy with thick glasses? I mean, my dad used to wear glasses when he was little, And now he's married to the most beautiful woman on the planet, my mom. The house creaked, pressed by the wind. The condo we used to live in, a 9-floor concrete building, buzzed with a neighbor's drill, mumbled with a TV set from behind the wall, cried like a baby from the big family next door. Our current house, though I can't really call it new, was completely different. It was silent and easygoing during the day. Its shadows lay dormant in the corners, on the closet cobwebs and under the stairs. But they all woke up during the night. Something was watching me from every corner, almost as if the old photos of my deceased family, with their ashen eyes, were hanging on the walls in place of my drawings. The floor was squeaking, rusty drains were moaning, the attic was occupied by noisy drafts. One could think the house was performing some sort of demonic melody. And then I realized I was, in fact, hearing music. It was already playing for a good while. Somewhere at the edge of my perception, I could hear a flute. It was mixed in with the sound of the wind, of the creaking old house, and my thoughts too. I stood up and rushed to the window. I wanted to reassure myself that this music was nothing more than a product of my imagination. It's not like someone is playing it there amidst the cold, snowy night, right? Opening the curtains ourselves. Someone was dancing in the field. Black silhouettes I could barely make out with a dark forest as their backdrop. They jumped around, basked in moonlight, bumped into piles of snow, rolled around and crawled on all fours. Stories about wolves playing under the moon came to mind, but these were clearly not wolves. They stood upright at times, circled around holding hands and whipping up snow, disappearing into the shadows for a brief moment and then coming back. Something bizarre was going on. Shadows dancing in the starless abyss made my imagination go wild, making me anxious at the same time. Suddenly, the music had stopped. The dancing shadows froze in place, and I could swear, pierced me with their eyes. One of the silhouettes immediately parted from the bizarre shadow carnival and sprinted across the field with giant leaps. It glided on squeaky snow without leaving any prints until it was devoured by the pitch-black shadow of my house, which became even darker and thicker. My heart was jumping around like the bird inside a cage. I shut the curtains with a swift motion and stepped back toward the bed. They saw me. A freezing torrent of fear washed over me. I stood in the middle of a perfectly dark room and listened to some unwanted guest move and scrape around, looking for an entrance. The sound moved to the right, then circled around the house. Now my guest should be at the front door. I jumped into the bed and covered myself with a blanket as if it could protect me. The shackles of fear locked my muscles. I remembered the funeral, my grandma lying there, hands crossed on her chest, her facial features sharp like that of a tin doll. ants running up and down the legs of chairs that held my grandma's casket. I imagined those little creatures climbing up her head and pulling up her eyelids with their tiny legs. Then her wrinkly eyeballs would once again move inside their sockets, and she'd be able to see her grandchildren. I was chanting the spell she taught me throughout the whole procedure. And now, lying under the blanket and listening to squeaks and howls, I was repeating the same words.
На острове Буяне, в синем океане, стоит домовина, в ней сало и глина, волосы седые, чертям еда, раба Божьего Антона не тронут никогда. Бесы забудут дорогу к дому, мертвые к мертвому, швуи к швому.
Bizarre sounds had disappeared. I cautiously peeked out from under the blanket and saw curtains waving around like a hanged man. And then the night doused me with a new portion of boiling terror. The sound scratched at my eardrums. In reality, something or someone were scratching at the front door, hurriedly clawing at wood, demanding to be let in. The door was shut. Dad had become very cautious recently, so he installed a sturdy lock. I remember him staring at the forest intently, as if he was looking for someone.
Мертвое к мертвому, живое к живому.
I hugged my knees, placing my chin between them, and drilled the door with my eyes. I was so flimsy and weak before the might of darkness. And then the doorknob twitched, slightly. Then it turned halfway, once, twice, as if the person who tried to enter had no hands. The doorknob tilted once more, and then started clicking violently. My jaw clenched from fear. My wet fingers clutched the blanket. The door creaked and opened. The wind taunted me, moaning inside the tin drains. Now you'll see. The door was wide open. The darkness writhed inside the carnivorous mouth of a doorway. It was as if the night itself was calling out to me, flapping its black wings and squeaking with rusty hinges. I was trembling and snared by the web of darkness that hung in the corners of my room, waiting for the one who weaved it to come out of the gaping black hole. My abdomen tightened and my chest rose up, ready to exhale a desperate scream. But before I was able to do anything, the darkness asked me,
Ты спишь тоже?
My sister's pale face protruded from the thick shadows. I almost screamed from relief.
Оля, я не сплю. Что случилось?
Olya frowned and stuck out her lower lip, a clear sign that she was about to cry.
Она опять прилетела и пялится на меня. Прогони ее, Тоша! Прогони, пожалуйста! Я так боюсь!
The fear that was tormenting me just a minute ago crawled away and hid somewhere in my stomach. I needed to calm Olya down.
Это был сон, глупая. Не пугайся. Сны не кусаются. Никто тебя не обидит.
Olya sobbed. She was trying her best to believe me. But was I sure myself?
У меня есть идея. Пойдем к тебе в комнату, видик посмотрим. «Спящую красавицу», например. Тебе же нравится этот мультик?
Почему у спящей красавицы принца у меня эта страшная птица?
Because the world is not fair. Sorry. That question took me by surprise.
Ладно, давай посмотрим «Золушку».
My thoughts became tangled, fuzzy. What was that? What studied me with its eyes while dancing feverishly under the moon? The darkness was clinging to the window, and it couldn't be fooled by Grandma's old chants. It couldn't be satisfied with a feast of lard and long ashen hair.
Тоша, ты идешь?
Да, сейчас.
Everyone awake? Oh, that got me when I first saw it. Not gonna lie. That's why I didn't want to laugh at Olya and her owl in the morning. Who could be visiting us here, in the middle of nowhere? We don't know anyone around here. So persistent. I felt extremely unsettled just from a silly thought that our morning guests could have come from the woods. I could barely hear voices coming from the front door. My mind was urging me to hide. In the closet, under the table, behind the curtains where Olya always hides.
Тоша, подойди-ка сюда.
I felt like kettlebells were tied to my feet, but still dragged them toward the hallway. A couple of policemen towered over me in the doorway. They smelled like frost and worry. My mom always winced and grumbled the moment she saw patrol cars. Worse than bandits. At the moment, though, she looked somewhat confused.
Здравствуйте.
The senior officer, who wore a grim expression, nodded.
Тут мальчик вчера потерялся, Вовой зовут. Глянь, пожалуйста. Ты его не видел?
The policeman held out a photograph to me. Cute cat. There was a ginger boy around the age of elementary school, pictured with a wall carpet as the backdrop. He had a striped cat in his hands and wore a wide smile.
Нет.
Точно? Посмотри внимательнее.
Где мне его видеть? Я тут никого не знаю, да и из дома-то почти не выхожу.
А может, видел в окно?
Да, у тебя ведь окна на лес.
The window.
Нет, не видел.
Ясно.
He sounded tired, but his eyes, his stare, long and heavy, was full of suspicion. I squirmed unwittingly under the weight of guilt which his giant shadow cast over me. The policeman finally tore his eyes from me and glanced over the hallway, the stairway, and the cracks in the ceiling, which I haven't noticed before for some reason.
Вы, кстати, как на новом месте? Попривыкли уже?
Понемногу, только вот дочка маленькая по городу скучает.
Скучает, значит. Из местных вас никто не беспокоит?
Все хорошо, спасибо.
The policeman pierced through me one more time with his grey eyes. My head started spinning.
Может, вам помочь как-то?
I asked that in a shaky voice to look like a polite boy and to end this unpleasant conversation sooner.
Я вот стою и думаю, ты, малец, на племеша моего похож. Шустрый парнишка твоих лет, с такими же окулярами. Все книжками зачитывался, детективами. Когда летом погостить приезжал, говорит, что в школу милиции мечтает поступить. Как я, хотел людям помогать. Смекаешь?
I felt uncomfortable, as if a distant relative and not a police officer stood before me.
Ох, ребятушки, сидите-ка вы лучше дома. Не ввязывайтесь ни во что. Жизнь сейчас совсем другая пошла.
Mom interjected in a cold voice.
Мне ли не знать?
Ну да ладно. Ты, Антон, в каком классе учишься?
В 6-м.
Друзей-то на новом месте еще не завел?
Пока нет. Я только после каникул в школу пойду.
Тогда вот вам на всякий случай мой номер. Звоните, если узнаете что.
The policemen were gone along with their shadows, the smell of cheap cologne, and the photo of a smiling boy. His face still stood before my eyes. I wondered what it was like for him, being all alone, there. For some reason, I thought of the forest swaying in the wind. What did his poor parents feel? And what would my parents do if I'd gone missing? Would they cry and thrash around hysterically? Or would they accuse each other, like they always do, and forget about me eventually?
Мам, а Вова этот в нашем лесу заблудился?
Выходит, что так. Бедный ребенок.
I looked out the window at the road. The police UAZ drove off toward the village. UAZ, a Soviet and Russian off-road freight passenger car brand which was produced in the Ulyanovsk car factory. Okay, good to know. The officer's nephew came to mind when I was splitting off old paint from the windowsill. I remembered all the teenage mystery novels from the Black Kitty series I've read this summer. Black Kitty, a series of contemporary Russian original or translated teen mystery books. I'm saying contemporary, but I think I never quite figured out which time period this game is set in, if it's present or if it's like more 90s maybe? If The Little Mermaid is out, then it must be at least 90s. Not sure about that. Your average boys and girls investigated all sorts of mysteries there. They looked for clues, spied on suspicious people, and after a set of amazing adventures, bam, solved any complicated case. They became local celebrities and must have made their parents very proud. I noticed a trail of policemen's footprints that led to the forest. And then it clicked in my head. Why don't I start an investigation of my own? Because you're a little boy, but of course you would think that you could do a better job than the police, eh? Maybe I'll find that lost boy. And I'll get a reward. Olya will be so happy. And not only Olya, Mom and Dad too. Maybe they'll even forget about the quarrels for a while. Maybe I'll even save us from the D word? I don't know, honey. I fantasized about buying Olya a Tamagotchi and getting a cassette player and a bunch of tapes for myself. Yeah, manifesting the 90s here. And a whole box of Kinder Surprise. The best of the best. When was the last time our parents bought us any toys? Last autumn, I think. My dad had lost his job at the time. There's that annoying song about it. Accountant, a song by an all-female Soviet pop band by the name of Combination, that became widely popular in the early 90s. And there we go, okay. I kind of forget that we did have a date there, or in era at least. I had little to no idea what was the accountant's job like. They count money, I think. Oh honey, you have no idea. Neighbors used to envy us. But nowadays, Mom and Dad barely had money to afford sweets, and Dad would always divide a single chocolate bar between me and Olya. Sometimes I gave her my share too. A good big brother. No matter how much I wanted to eat sweets, she was still just a pipsqueak. I couldn't wait to go out looking for clues.
Пойду погуляю.
Ага, сейчас. Чтобы потом милиционеры с твоей фотографией по домам ходили. Лес вон какой густой. А если мальчика звери дикие утащили? Или того хуже?
Even worse echoed through the hallway.
Да я рядом буду, в лес не пойду.
Что я тебе сказала? Мне дважды повторять? Лучше портфель собери или соли поиграй.
The sound of splashing water came from the kitchen. It meant that the argument was over and Mom had the last word. Okay, and here we have basically a choice. Wait, what's this? Oh, basically a hint what we can look at. Interesting. Mom's peg top, a family relic. My mom played with it when she was little, then she gifted it to me. Olya was next in the succession line. The toy belonged to her now. She stared at the dancing spindle as if it could show her something. A fairy tale or maybe even our future. Now even my little sister was a bit too old for the old squeaky peg top. This cross had seen so many people come and go in this house. It was black, as if it absorbed all human sin from the long years it was hanging under the ceiling. After Grandma died, Mom was going to take it off and hang a horseshoe in its place as a lucky charm, but she cut herself with the cross's sharp corner and almost fell from the stepladder. Dad called it a sign from above and ordered the cross to be left alone in its rightful place. Yeah, that would kind of seem like an omen. My parents prohibit me from making long-distance calls, but from time to time I really want to hear my old friends. Sometimes I would just pick up the phone, listen to the low hum of the Zoomer and the distant crackling, imagining the wind howling in the ice-laden courts. Some imagination you have there. Okay, that's it for the look icons. So our options are to the front door, to the kitchen, or opening this door under the stairs. Let's take a look. The dark, stuffy closet. Mom says it smells like mice, but how would she know their smell? She hates when I stick my nose in there. She's afraid I'll cut myself on the freshly sharpened axe. And Olya can't even be lured close to it. She thinks Baba is living there. I tried to help her fight her fears once. I opened the door and turned on a dim lamp so she would see there was nothing but cobwebs, dad's tools, and scratched walls. She still didn't believe me. And I liked to hide in the closet and listen to Olya count outside. 1, 2, 3, better hide from me. And then drag her feet on the creaking floorboards, hoping that she wouldn't need to look for me in the cramped monster's den. Okay, so, well, we know there's an axe in here, we just can't use it? I mean, we shouldn't need to, hopefully. Well, with how the mom reacted, I guess we shouldn't sneak out anyway. Let me maybe do a save here already. Okay, did I do it? I assume there will be some instances where we can die. I mean, I don't think right here, but somewhere along the way, so I will definitely make use of the save function. But for now, let's go into the kitchen. Okay, what can we look at? Fridge, the radio, okay, a few things. The side of an old ocean freezer was checkered with my childish drawings, Mom's recipes, and all kinds of stickers from bubblegum with dinosaurs that Olya liked so much. What is this? Senior Lieutenant Tikhonov Konstantin Vladimirovich. And the telephone number. I suppose that is the policeman we just talked to? Among that still life picture hung a piece of ruled paper with the phone number of the police officer who visited us. First Lieutenant Tikhonov. I read inside my mind, looking at the officer's sprawling handwriting. A scrap of paper was held by 2 pieces of a broken magnet from some old Soviet toy, and those pieces just barely covered up the numbers as if to taunt me. I leaned toward it to unveil the mystery and take the piece to a safer place where it would wait for its time when I would finally find Vova and be the first to call the police with the happy news.
Антон!
Mom's reproachful eyes stared at me.
Зачем тебе? Не трогай, потеряешь же.
Angering my mom was the last thing I wanted, so I lowered my hand. Alright. I took a peek at Mom's crossword. She would get very angry when someone gave her advice, so me and Dad faked knowing the answer and being about to reveal it all the time. I smiled at that fleeting thought. Vertical, 9 letters. The name of the Philistine deity that protected them from viper bites and had a nickname, the Lord of Flies. Second letter is E. Yeah, no, I got nothing.
МЧС России объявила экстренное предупреждение из-за неблагоприятных погодных условий. По прогнозу синоптиков, к региону приближается циклон, из-за которого ожидается сильный снег, метель, снежные заносы на дорогах. Будьте осторожны и берегите себя.
Yeah, snowstorm is just what we need, eh? The decrepit and stain-covered calendar was once my favorite form of entertainment in Grandma's house. I remember waking up and running to the kitchen so I could tear off yesterday's leaf first thing in the morning. as if the coming day would get lost in the taiga forest without my help. One day closer to New Year's. One day closer to Grandma's funeral. I haven't touched this calendar for years now. Since the time they started writing dark and spooky death chants that only made me gloomy instead of funny proverbs and superstitions, to be exact. I grabbed a dusty calendar leaf with caution, and it tore off effortlessly. Sadly, the spooky descriptions from my childhood were still there. 7 horses carry the log. If 7 can't carry, bring the 8th from a ferry. They will take it away and never come back. This is the fate the log cannot escape. I crumpled the grey leaf and threw it into the waste bin, hoping to get rid of the anxiousness that washed over me. It was spreading inside me like an ink stain on blotting paper. I'm not quite sure I get the meaning of that. Sorry. Yeah, does anyone know like the proper meaning of that thing, that chant? Is it well known? What do we have in the fridge? Some pills? Eggs? Sure. Grandma kept ice cream for me and Olya there, but now I could only see meat bits for soup and clumped together pelmeni. I grew to hate them already. Really? Pelmeni, a Russian variety of dumplings made by boiling thin, unleavened dough filled with mincemeat. One may even call it Russian fast food. Okay. Nothing else to check out here. Okay, lie to Mom. So basically our options are lying to the mother or just leaving without a comment. Neither is great. I also don't remember what his lie is, if he's making an excuse, or at least we're telling her that we're going outside. Oh well. It was difficult to lie to Mom, but there was no other way for me to run away from home. Calling it running away now, okay.
Мам, там что-то с телевизором случилось. Картинка какая-то тусклая, и экран весь в полосах.
Mom's face became visibly distorted.
Без ножа меня режешь. Дострелялся в уток своих. Говорила же, посадите мне кинескоп своей приставкой. Где мы теперь мастера найдем в дыре этой, а?
Может быть, просто настройки сбились? Сходи, посмотри, пожалуйста.
Нормально же работал с утра.
Из-за снегопада, наверное, неполадки.
Mom rubbed her hands clean on her apron and went to Olya's room. Can we get the number now, or should we? No, we don't need it yet. So I think we should probably leave. I mean, should in exclamation marks. No, what is it? You know what I mean. Quote unquote. I opened the front gate and went into the field. Carefully, so Mom wouldn't see me from the window. When I crossed half of the distance towards the forest, the snow piles became as high as my knees. I remembered my nightly fears. I saw those silhouettes around here. They were jumping around, holding hands. That hypnotizing music started playing in my head all on its own. In the light of day, those distant figures felt like a simple dream. The sun turned my nightmares to ash, but the aftertaste was still there. Distant ringing in my ears, distorted shadows crawling on the snow alongside me, and a barely audible whisper in my head, blurry and almost kind. Everything was silent. So silent, I felt like the world was totally empty. No ground, no sky, no parents, no Olja. The time reached its limit, a one-way trip that ended at the forest's piney stockade. Sometimes silence was much scarier than any scream. Our parents would scream at each other while arguing, and both me and Olja turned to stone, listening to them. But then always came the ringing silence. Our apartment became numb a couple of days before we departed. It was hard to remember the last time Mom and Dad joked around, laughing, or spent time together, almost like all of it was in a previous life. When they kissed with Olja present, she always frowned and snorted in a funny way. But one day, it all changed. Something important had left our home, and something scary filled the remaining void. It was as if a fire broke out, and our parents were hurriedly packing our belongings, trying to save themselves and us. From who, though? From the people with dead cold eyes who sometimes visited us in our previous home? The eyes that only saw balls of worms on the black ground and everything. And somewhere far away a siren was going off, trying to warn us of the coming menace. I shuddered, chasing away my delusions, and looked around. There were only me, this white field, and the wind that was whipping up icy dust and belts of powdered snow. I squinted from the sun and turned my eyes to the sunless forest. It looked especially dark in contrast with the blinding whiteness. Knobby tree roots slithered under the snow like fat snakes. Rotten leaves and coniferous needles froze into the ice. Dry, prickly branches intertwined, bringing up uncomfortable thoughts about fences. Were they protecting the forest? Or were they keeping something from breaking out? Some object was hanging from one of the pointy branches. I tried to get closer, drowning in snow, and when I almost got to the edge of the forest, I saw a knitted mitten. It looked like a wounded bird among the hungering semi-dark. Should I take it to the police? The senior officer looked gloomy, but he still reminded me of Captain Casanova from my favorite TV show called The Streets of Broken Lights. A Russian mystery TV series telling a story of the daily life of Russian police officers. It's the longest running series in the history of Russian TV at the moment. Okay. He was also always anxious, with a tired look in his eyes, but still brave and strong. Will this mitten help them find the lost boy? It might be a clue. Wova! I heard a distant shout. Looked like it came from the river. Vova. As if the trees were calling out to someone. Vova resounded closer to me. Someone was standing there, behind the trees, hiding. Vova! I knew someone was looking for the lost boy, but still, something was unsettling about that figure. Its stillness, how it was bent unnaturally toward the ground. Its blackness. There's no one there, just branches and roots. It's all just my imagination. A nearby bird flapped its wings loudly. A shadow split from the tree and disappeared from my sight. I looked away for just a moment, but when I turned my gaze back to the same place, it was gone. So it was my imagination after all. Silence reigned for a painfully long time. My muscles were tightly sprung. My heart was beating somewhere in my throat. Any noise, any little movement, any small whisper from the thicket, and I'd sprint. But nothing of the sort happened. I looked at the mitten once more. What a choice. Run away or take the mitten. Well, I think it's time for a save again. And just for a moment, because I think the upcoming scene is going to be a bit louder, and it's probably already a bit loud for you. As I said, apologize for that. It's a bit hard for me to judge right now. But if we're coming out here, we might as well get something out of it, right? So let's take the mitten. It's not that deep into the forest, right? I decided to take the lonely mitten from the branch. Vova! A shout rumbled across the field and dissolved into the distance. No echo, no hope for a reply. I stepped toward the bristly trees and tried to claim my find. It didn't budge. I pulled harder. The branch cracked and the mitten tore off, landing in my hand with a squishy sound. All too heavy. Wet. I squeezed it without thinking, and something dark spilled from it, forming a tiny string between the mitten and the snow. Steam rose from the snow pile. I froze in place, studying my palms in disgust. Red. The sound of cracking branches invaded the silence. I didn't have to think twice before running away. Someone was chasing me from the darkness, breaking pine branches, closing the distance with giant leaps. Snow was slowing me down. Crazy thoughts flew through my mind. I'll get caught. They'll get me. I'll get dragged into the thicket. I'll be gone. Forever. But there was one more voice, probably one of reason. It gave me strength, spurred me on. You can do it. Don't stop. I heard an animal roar behind me. It was so loud, my ears went numb. It felt like the sound had come from a pack of hungry beasts rather than a single one. Their nostrils sucked in freezing air. They sensed my fear. 2 giant wings flapped above my head. An enormous shadow flew over the clearing. A hoot, a wheeze. The roars were coming from all directions now. From the dried up raspberry bush, from twisted pines, from under the windfall. Hurry, run, don't look back. It felt like I was inside a nightmare. The snowy clearing became viscous like quicksand. I was stuck in place. I pulled my leg from the mushy trap just to be caught in a new one, even deeper than before. I continued to drown, sinking deeper and deeper with every desperate push. Was snow ever this sticky? I screamed in horror after realizing this wasn't snow. Someone or something in the snow pile was clutching my pants. I gathered all my strength and rushed forward. The pressure on my leg was gone, my boots slipped out of the hole, and my soles were on a hard surface again. I reached a clear path with one jump and from there ran to my house. Its gloomy facade didn't look threatening now. That house was my line of defense from the shadows that flapped their wings and the creatures that were hidden under the snow. It tripped over the doorstep and smashed into the door. In all my hurry, I still managed to notice the claw marks. As if a dog was striking the wood with its paws, demanding to be let in so it could escape the cold. I hadn't noticed these marks when I was leaving. The heartbeat in my ears was much louder than my surroundings. I couldn't hear whether someone was following me or not. What if they were already in our front yard and Mom had locked the door? Drowning in fear, I pulled on the doorknob and it obediently gave way. I rolled into the hallway and shut the door behind me. Porch planks creaked as my pursuers ascended the stairs. My fingers slipped off the lock and I couldn't click it into place. I gritted my teeth and pulled hard on the iron knob, whipping it between the boards. I stared blankly at the door. Someone was standing on the other side of the pitiful, flimsy barrier that was probably less useful than blankets. Wheezing breath reached into the house and crashed at me in waves. It smelled of pine and sweat. Mom peeked out of the kitchen and chastised me with the same frigid voice she always used when talking to Dad.
Что конкретно тебе не ясно в просьбе не хлопай дверьми?
Я случайно.
I snuck a glance at the door. The smell was gone, and the breath was too. If there was someone in the first place, of course. Here, mere 5 meters away from Mom, my fear was slowly weakening, melting like snow in spring, and with it, the last bit of strength I had left my body too. My legs gave way. I propped myself up against the wall so I wouldn't fall over. Mom's expression had changed immediately. The cold mask of strictness and detachment was gone. Mom looked the same as before all those quarrels. She finally saw my condition, my wet pants plastered with snow.
Ты где был? Я тебе что говорила, а? Чтобы ты дома сидел. Я и для тебя пустое место.
I got afraid she would cry. I reached out to her like when I was very little and wanted her to cuddle me. But Mom regained her composure fast and put on her usual face. Her eyes shined like steel. Her voice rang out.
У отца сигареты пропали.
That's what you're saying now? Okay.
Признавайся, ты их стащил? Курить бегаешь?
Там за мной кто-то гнался. Я думал, меня...
I stuttered as soon as I started explaining myself. Tears welled up in my eyes. Mom leaned toward me and sniffed my clothes like a beast, searching for the smell of tobacco. Then she squinted her eyes in suspicion and looked into the front yard. Her expression changed in an instant, and she covered her mouth with her hand.
Гляди, вон же они. Прямо у забора.
My heart started thumping as if I became prey once again, and my pursuers were following me in the field. I could swear that I've heard something scratch at the door, just like in my nightmare. Mom beckoned me with her finger, and I gathered all my remaining bravery to look into the kitchen window, facing my fear. I could barely discern some hairy silhouettes swimming in snow through the icy winter patterns on the glass. Dogs. Just a small pack of strays with no name and owner, barely reminding of the hungry monsters that live on the edge of the forest.
Божечки, ты их испугался? Да они сами тебя перепугаются, Антон.
Really? When it's several dogs and you don't know how hungry they are?
Они гнались за мной, словно за зайцем. А вдруг они бешеные?
Exactly. The smile had slowly disappeared from Mom's face. Now she looked at the dogs as if it was her first time seeing them.
Что если они нападут на Олю?
Мам,
Вот бы твой отец их всех перестрелял.
мама, они живые.
А что? Ты уж определись, они тебе друзья или враги? Не маленький ведь уже.
Well, some detective I am. In reality, I wasn't risking my life among monsters, but rather my pants among a pack of stupid strays. And what for? What use do I have for this? Mitten. Of course! A dark and sticky mitten that belonged to the lost boy made a squishy sound in my hand. Seems like I was clutching it the whole time. That's my trump card as a detective. I hurried to present this clue to my mom.
Мам, смотри, это Вовина варежка. Ну того, про которого утром милиция спрашивала. Она вся в крови, на дереве висела. Вон там, могу показать. Давай в милицию скорее позвоним, как нас участковый просил. Мам, гляди! Фу!
A shadow of doubt slowly crept onto Mom's contorted face. As if she was trying to remember something distant. Like someone tries to remember their dream, but the images slip away.
А ну-ка прекрати сейчас же. Оля тебя услышит, с ума сойдет. Она и так не спит, на все подряд жалуется. Еще и ты со своими шуточками.
At that moment, I realized the mitten was actually wet from snow. There was no blood whatsoever. I wanted to sink through the floor from embarrassment.
Иди сюда, паникер. Да не стой столбом. Вот, таблетку на. Быстро пей.
A golden-colored pill, reminiscent of a dead wasp, fell into my palm.
Я уже пил сегодня, за завтраком.
Попререкайся мне еще. Сказала дома сидеть, нет же. Был бы отец, выпорол. Сейчас же выпей, а то ночью не уснешь. Тебе ведь в школу завтра.
So I had to swallow the bitter medication, drinking it down with similarly awful water that gave off a taste of chlorine. Maybe it wasn't Wolfer's mitten. Maybe it wasn't a mitten at all. Just like the forest monsters. And Olya's owl. Am I going mad? What's happening to me? Either the pill had an immediate effect, or my overexerted brain didn't let fear inside anymore. Serenity washed over me, bringing yawny indifference along with it.
Антон, выпил? Можешь, если захочешь. Раздевайся. Уснул, что ли?
Нет, мам, просто задумался.
Интересно, о чем же?
Так, глупости всякие.
Mom scrutinized me with suspicious eyes, as if she wasn't sure she was looking at her own son and not some doppelganger that came from the forest.
Точно все нормально? У тебя такое лицо было, когда милиционер про окно спросил.
Все нормально, мам.
She heaved a deep sigh.
Хорошо.
It seemed like the house had changed. The sofa's fabric had become discolored. Fingerprints appeared on the bathroom tiles. The light bulbs also felt different, dimmer and yellower. Even the saliva inside my mouth had a different taste. A melody from Aladdin could be heard from the upper floor. Olya was done rewatching her favorite Little Mermaid episodes and switched to other tapes. I slowly changed into my home clothes, stopped before the sink and studied my reflection in the mirror, like I was trying to solve one of those spot the difference puzzles. Then I went upstairs. Jafar Santiago's voices died down. I walked past Olya's bedroom and slipped into my own. Okay, what can we look? Oh, that was quite some excitement. Okay, so the feet startled me for a second, but that does look like our sister, right? So it's so funny that you get these noises over things that you can interact with, so you don't necessarily need to use the button. My Triceratops figurine. I know about all sorts of dinosaurs: Velociraptors, Afrovenators, Hypsilophodons. I remember going to the movies to see Jurassic Park back when we still lived in the city and taking pictures with the T-Rex in the hall. It turned its head and roared. It was awesome. And next to it was a Robotech transformer. I love this cartoon. When a jet fighter speeds up into the intro among the sounds of blaster fire, you know your next 20 minutes will surely be amazing. Centra 80 space station is captured. Rick, get ready for battle. Okay. I've dreamt of becoming an artist since Dad bought me my first comic book. Fly magazine was the coolest. I especially liked the big space-related edition with alien monsters and that funny episode about the gendarme. Fly, the first Soviet and Russian periodic adult comics magazine, extremely popular during the crazy 90s. What made the magazine stand out was the refusal to use material from its foreign counterparts. Just a note about that scene before, when you realized the mitten was only wet from snow. I actually remembered that differently. But maybe that was just a theory that was spouted during the stream. That, yeah, I kind of thought it was red, but it was because there were berries inside instead of blood. And that when he squished the mitten, the juice from the berries would come out, basically. Yeah, it's one of those things where you don't know, does the kid just have an overactive imagination? What with the... yeah, do we call it trauma? Like moving someplace new, parents, like, close to a divorce. That's not always easy to handle for kids, so... yeah. But we don't know. Were there any monsters? Or really, was it just the stray dogs? I started drawing all kinds of stuff since that day, and I seem to be getting pretty good at it. One of my letters even got published in Fly once. Maybe someday they even publish my comic? Maybe. Don't stop dreaming. Monsters, Ghosts, UFOs. The Encyclopedia of Paranormal Phenomenon from Rossmann Publishing. I've learned about the Loch Ness Monster, Medusa Gorgon, and Bigfoot from there. Olya is always scared of the book. She could barely handle sifting through the monster and alien sections with me, but the middle part, where they start to talk about ghosts, really freaked her out. I even remember hunting ghosts after I'd read that book. I measured the distance between items on my table every evening and checked if they moved due to some supernatural force come the morning. They didn't. But to be honest, what was I expecting? To meet Casper the Ghost? Okay, whatever could be behind the curtains? The forest didn't look as grim during the day. Untangled tree branches in the distance, and the snowy field between our house and the forest brought sleepiness to my eyes. But sometimes I would still catch myself looking in the window at the icy treetops instead of doing my homework. No comment on that, eh? Okay. One of the drawers was empty. I hid the mitten there. Where are you, Vova? Achievement unlocked. The simple action drained the last bit of strength from me. I sat on the bed. And only then I noticed there was someone behind the curtains. My tired hand dropped to the sheets. Whether it was due to medication I took or the stress I underwent, the room began to contort, as if the wind was blowing the walls out like a pair of sails. The corners of the room bent and undulated. The only stable thing in the whole room was the figure between the windowsill and the curtains. A flimsy piece of cloth was stuck to my hidden visitor. It reminded me of burial sheets.
Оля,
Who else would be standing there? I stood up and licked my dried up lips.
Оля, очень смешно.
The silhouette was unmoving. It was enveloped softly by the curtains, as if there was a thick layer of darkness there, not a human being. I reached toward the curtains. But my heart, controlled by medication. The wind sang in the field with a chorus of voices. For a second, I wanted to return to the bed, just lie down and watch the person behind the curtain, knowing full well they were looking back at me. They are looking without blinking, waiting for me to fall asleep. Plastic rings rustled against the holder when I pulled open the curtains.
Попался!
Да я сразу понял, что это ты.
A blindingly bright halo lit up above Olya's head with the setting sun as the background. My sister was shining. When she was just a baby, Dad always used to say she was shining with happiness. I always retorted, "But Dad, she's not some flashlight." But I brought her to the window one day and sunlight poured on her smiling face. I felt like I was holding a light-woven child.
А я все видела.
Да ну!
Что ты спрятал?
She was just like my mom when she was little, before she put on her sad mask of tiredness and switched to her commanding tone of voice.
Ничего, просто...
Olya ran up to the table, her eyes round, and asked,
Ты что-то украл и теперь прячешь? Ты вор?
"Rude."
Что? Глупая. Ничего я не крал.
A clear image came to mind, that mitten hanging from a tree branch. What if I did steal it after all? From the forest, from the tilted figure, standing behind black trees. Olya could be selfish and stubborn when she wanted.
Покажи тогда.
Поклянись, что никому не скажешь. Тогда покажу.
Olya wore a plotting smile.
Клянусь маминым сердцем.
An oath she heard in one of the movies about the pioneers we've watched. Pioneer movement, an umbrella term for communist children organizations existing around the world, somewhat reminiscent of the Scout movement.
Не говори так.
Olya nodded and made a gesture with her hand, locking her mouth with an imaginary key. She was filled with curiosity that was splashing in her giant eyes. I opened the drawer and Olya leaned in, holding her breath. It looked like there was not just a simple mitten, but some sort of exotic critter.
Это чья-то варежка?
She said that as if she couldn't understand what she saw.
Один мальчик потерял. И сам потерялся. Теперь понимаешь, как опасно гулять в лесу, особенно детям?
Ему, наверное, там очень холодно. Его найдут?
Обязательно. Участковый по домам ходит, всем фотографию его показывает.
Olya traversed the room with care and pressed her tiny palms against the window.
А почему он по домам ходит, а не по лесу? Боится?
The question caught me off guard.
Милиционеры ничего не боятся. И лес они прочесали.
Yeah, right, flashed in my clouded mind. Did they really check every nook and cranny where darkness, cold, and whispers of icy branches dwell? If that's the case, how did they miss the mitten? Or did it appear later? For me? I changed the topic, as if trying to get Olya as far away as possible from the forest thicket.
Если я сам найду пропавшего мальчика, нам, может, награду дадут. Кучу всякого, как в поле чудес. Клёво же.
Wait, is it blinking? Field of Wonders. A Soviet and Russian TV game show still running to this day, coming out every Friday. Can be described as a partially adapted version of Wheel of Fortune. Okay. Olya wasn't listening to me. She was piercing the forest with incredibly adult eyes, uncharacteristic for her.
А что, если эта сова его утащила?
Ерунда. Не может сова поднять человека. Но вот что...
I was picking my words with utmost care. I forced them out of my overexerted brain.
Ты в лес не суйся. Мне кажется, он какой-то... Как бы сказать... Проклятый, что ли?
Как в сказке?
Нет, скорее, как на той страшной кассете, что родители прячут.
Olya shivered and stole a glance at the window.
Я видела, как ты убегал. За тобой кто-то гнался?
Нет, просто, чтобы мама не волновалась, спешил домой.
As I looked at my sister, my heart was tearing apart. She was so fragile. It was so easy to stifle her light. A gust of wind and a small fire would be gone.
Хорошо тебе. Меня вот мама не пускает даже на крыльцо. Как принцесса в башне сижу. Никуда не могу выйти. Так и умру тут от скуки.
Не придумывай. От скуки еще никто не умирал. У тебя же есть я и мультики, а мама с папой скоро помирятся.
Знаешь, что бы я загадала на следующий день рождения? Чтобы родители тоже в детей превратились, и мы бы все вместе играли, как раньше.
Ага, а если бы они стали размером с жука, то мы бы их в спичечный коробок посадили.
Olya giggled and tugged at my sleeve.
Тоша, пойдем Аладдина смотреть?
Just to mention it once, I find the art style very interesting. I mean, it's obviously a choice to make it black and white, but especially with Olya with her white lashes, it looks really pretty. Fatigue won over my desire to be with my little sister. I was washed over by some sort of heinous apathy.
Вымотался я. Что-то не хочется.
Ну пойдем. Мне скучно одной, а мама занята все время. Можно выбрать другой мультик, который ты еще не видел.
Да я все наши кассеты наизусть знаю.
А вот и не все. Ты Питера Пэна не видел. Помнишь, ты уснул на середине? А там потом такое. Ну пойдем.
Давай попозже.
Рассказать тебе, чем все закончилось?
Утром расскажешь.
Утром не захочу. Придумала. А давай в прятки.
Нет, Оль.
Тогда нарисуй мне динозавра.
Оля, блин.
Нарисуй.
Да оставь ты меня в покое!
I blurted it out without thinking, and then I was immediately taken aback. I'd never screamed at my little sister like that. Olya stared back at me in shock. Her lips started trembling, a precursor to tears. My chest was seething with disgust and embarrassment. What's happening to me? I hurried to prevent Olya from crying.
Ладно, уболтала. Давай смотреть мультики. Только недолго.
Уже не хочу.
I came up to her, put my hand on her soft head.
Пойдем. Питера Пэна посмотрим.
Ага, ты опять уснешь.
I smiled and lifted her chin. Her eyes were wet and felt bottomless.
Не усну, обещаю. А потом я тебе целого трицератопса нарисую.
Ура! Трипи-цири-попса!
Ну, почти.
Olya rubbed her eyes with the sleeve of her pajamas, and a shining smile returned to her face.
Давай ты пока кассету перемотаешь, а я у мамы попрошу сгущенки с хлебом.
Let me maybe try to put the overall sound down a bit again. Sorry about that. I think it's a bit all over the place. Yeah.
Только утром свежий привезли, как ты любишь.
Неси, только аккуратнее, а то разольешь. Опять ругаться будут.
Спорим, не разолью. Кассета где-то в тумбочке. Поищи пока.
Olya disappeared into the doorway, and I dragged my feet into the neighboring room. Olya's countless toys. An old teddy bear is the main attraction here. Olya doesn't sleep without it. And she digs her nose into its fur when she sleeps. A piggy bank. Olya is saving money for a real puppy because Dad said that taking care of him will take a lot of money. The scary window where Olya sees that accursed owl every night lurking in the dark. Olya keeps curtains open during the day, but as soon as the twilight comes, she shuts them tight, so she wouldn't see the pair of hungry eyes outside. Okay, I guess that's it. Turning on the TV. The old photon TV was gathering dust in the corner. All that was left was clicking the button on the front panel. The tube wound up and familiar white noise started dancing on the black screen. I almost reached out to turn on the VCR, and the noise calmed down and a blurry image appeared for a moment. It was a dark taiga forest, just like the one outside my window. The picture split the screen in half. Something creepy resembling human speech was coming out of the speaker. Just a few moments later, the scenery was again overshadowed by noise. Did it catch some rogue signal? Local TV station only really showed Soviet cartoons, and even that was pretty rare. And only just recently I used to always watch Robotech before school. It was so awesome. Maybe I should tinker with the antenna? What if I catch this channel again? On the other hand, Olya had asked me to find the tape. It wouldn't be nice to disappoint her. But in my sleepy state, I didn't have the strength to do all of it. Okay, so either we set the TV or we search for the tape. So I'm wondering here if this choice is... I mean, I'm curious about setting the TV, but then is it more of a thing of feeding into the fear, like going down a spiral? Or would it be better to ignore these quote-unquote signs that we're seeing, this weird stuff, and just rather focus on living a normal life? in the grand scheme of things. Tricky. Well, I'll definitely do another save. Just to be safe. And this is really tricky because I am curious, but then again the state that he's in, especially with the medication, maybe it would be better to let it be. Too curious. The picture finally cleared up. But the moment I rejoiced at finding that weird signal again, the TV started coughing, a voice barely coming through the cacophony.
Видели его часто. Именно тогда.
Small snowy hills were lined up on the screen, pierced with rickety crosses, and the male voice was narrating with a slow, mournful voice.
Стояла беспросветная кладбищенская ночь. В то мрачное время маленькая Сеня встретила свою судьбу в лице чудовищного обитателя дикой чащобы. Местные называют его не иначе, как хозяин леса.
I froze and did my best not to move, as if by doing that I could scare away the narrator. I listened closely to his every word.
Зверь разобрался с беспомощной девочкой по-хозяйски.
The camera panned across the snow with something black spilled over it, looking for ragged pieces of cloth that were thrown around all over the place. I didn't want to think whether Senya's remains were wrapped in there, so I shut my eyes without thinking. The voice continued.
Волки здесь редкие гости. Вот что поведала нам баба Тамара, обитательница одного из местных склепов.
A close-up shot of the face of an old homeless woman, weary from life and alcohol abuse, rattled on the screen.
Да, бестия страшенная, хуже мертвеца отрытого.
The old woman splattered saliva all over the rectangular mic.
И смердит еще, как... немытый!
The rest of her comparison was swallowed up by the sound of a horn.
Не припомню я такой вони. Стояла эта тварюга там, где ты, милок, сейчас стоишь, и таращилась на меня прям посередь дня. Здоровенно такая, глаза стеклянные.
Obscenities were covered by another beep.
Говорит, что ежели тебе этот дьявол заприметить, то сунет в мешок к себе и дел с концом. Но меня он не трогает. Видать, нравлюсь я ему. Вот и забудь меня чертовой невестой.
Charming.
Что правда, то правда. Опустившимися до звериного образа жизни хищник брезгует, предпочитая детскую невинную кровь. Теперь все чаще хозяина леса видят в поселениях на периферии нашей родины.
Torn between believing in what was said and shrugging it away, I decided to record the remaining part of the documentary for some reason. I quickly grabbed the tape that was on top of the TV and put it into the VCR without even looking at the cover. What are you recording over, my boy? I pressed rec, turned the sound up and paid attention to the slipping signal.
Хозяином леса
Его прозвали не просто так. Ему подчиняются все звери, пернатые и лохматые. Они предвестники появления самого чудовища. Если слышите вой вдалеке, то, скорее всего, он знает, где вы живете. Если порог дома истоптан звериными следами, а за окном караулят птицы, прячьтесь, он уже идет за вами. А если однажды ночью, проснувшись, вы увидите глаза в окне, то скоро, 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 скоро.
The TV suddenly went mad and looped the last word over and over, piercing my ears. I got goosebumps all over my spine. The tape ended and was rewinding to the beginning. The sound of rustling tape reminded me of leaves in the wind and the low howl of the beast. I woke up from my stupor and pressed the button. The VCR ejected the tape. For a moment I thought it was stained with saliva. But that was just the light from the chandelier making the black plastic glossy. And then I saw the cover. Oops, I recorded it over Peter Pan. That's what I get for hurrying. It was bad enough that I ruined Olya's cartoon, but I also put this creepy stuff over it. I can't let her see this. We'll drown in tears. I snuck a glance at the door. I could hear the clatter of glass and the squeaky floorboards. Olya appeared in the doorway.
Ты не смотришь без меня?
My sister brought the tray with unevenly cut bread and a whole can of condensed milk.
Нет. Я пока кассету ищу. А ты точно хочешь Питера Пэна смотреть?
Хочу! Включай скорее, а то мама скоро сядет свой бразильский сериал смотреть.
Come on, think, fake detective.
Честно, мне как-то Питер Пэн совсем не понравился. Может, лучше «Русалочку»?
«Русалочку» я уже насмотрелась. А ты обещал.
She's so stubborn.
Придумал. Давай сначала пару серий «Черепашек-ниндзя». Согласна?
Olya frowned, but ultimately gave up. She put down the tray and crossed her hands on her chest.
Если так сильно просишь. Откроешь сгущенку. Порезаться боюсь. Края острые.
As soon as I stood up, colorful dots popped up before my eyes, and my sore legs were pierced by thousands of needles. Only when I reached the sofa, I realized that the can was already open. Olya had tricked me, played me for a fool. My stomach became heavy. I wanted to rush toward the TV, but my little sister was faster. She picked up the remote and proclaimed in a victorious tone,
Повелся! Владычица пульта приказывает смотреть Питера Пэна!
I couldn't even open my mouth, and the VCR had already eaten the accursed tape. She'll play it and then... Black crosses on unnamed graves, empty crypts, bloody scraps on the snow, and the insane devil's winch. I'd better tell the truth.
Оля, стой! Я тебе конец кассеты нечаянно стер. Отдай ее мне и возьми любые 2 мои.
Ты чего? Не мог ты стереть? Мы с папой всем кассетам зубики пластмассовые выломали отверткой. Теперь ни на один мой мультфильм ничего записать нельзя.
My little sister pressed the triangular play button on the remote. I squeezed on the inside, awaiting the out-of-this-world voice of the narrator. But I saw the duel between Peter Pan and Captain Hook instead. I sighed in relief. My head, heavy as a leaden ball, now rested in my hands. Olja smiled in joy. She put the tape on rewind and started spreading milk over her bread. And when the cartoon started, she forgot about everything in the world. As if she really got transported to the Neverland, like she always wished. To be honest, I also imagined myself there, in a land where one never ages, where no one argues over little things, where no one listens to fights and the sound of broken plates at night. But now, Peter Pan's land was especially far away for me. My thoughts dragged on, stumbled upon the horned beast that awaited me among the trees, and the narrator's mournful voice haunted me, sliding over bushes and ravines. Like a winged carnivore would track its prey. It felt like I was dreaming with my eyes still open. Then my sister's scream pulled me back to reality.
Тоша, скорей, штору задерни!
Зачем? Никто же на тебя не смотрит.
Уже темно, а когда темнеет, прилетает сова. Я боюсь.
I got out of bed, fighting my drowsiness, and closed the curtains. Anything else to do? No? Okay. Closing. I did my best not to look outside, toward the treetops, toward the tiger forest, which seemingly drew closer and closer. Of course, it was just a visual effect from shadows of branches scraping the snow.
Тоша, мама думает, что я напридумывала про сову. И папа считает, что раз я маленькая, то значит врушка. А сова есть. Вот честная-пречестная, есть она. Ты же мне веришь? Что она там и каждую ночь прилетает и...
I swiftly grabbed Olja's hand and looked her in the eyes. I was trying to transfer at least some of my courage and determination. But did I really have those qualities?
Я тебе верю, слышишь?
I don't know what to believe, honestly.
Ты только родителям больше не рассказывай про сову. У них и так хлопот по горло, они только рассердятся. Ты мне говори, если что случится. И в окно не смотри.
Но она хочет, чтобы я смотрела.
Перехочет. Притворись, что ее нет и не было никогда, что она выдумка, как родители говорят. Ей ждать надоест, она улетит.
We followed Peter Pan's adventures as if nothing had happened, as if the forest didn't kidnap kids, as if our parents weren't tearing each other apart bit by bit. Captain Hook was running away from a crocodile, and Captain Pan was headed to London on a gilded sailboat. By some miracle, I lasted longer than my little sister. Olja's eyelids had dropped. She started snoring lightly, resting her chin on the side of the bed. The chorus was singing the ending song. The world of Disney was lit up by a silvery moon. Another moon peeked from under the first one. scary and wan, hanging over the taiga forest. The horrifying report got recorded right over the credits. My throat went dry. My pulse became faster. I looked towards Olya. She smacked her lips in her sleep. I squeezed the remote with all my might, ready to press stop any moment. I rewound the recording, checked if it was intact, and then carefully took out the tape. The protective pin was still in place. I stood up and left Olya's room. Whether it was by providence or by curse, I hid the tape alongside the mitten at the exact moment Mom peeked into my room. There's a tape achievement.
Довольно баловства. Завтра первый день в школе. Ложись, тебе надо выспаться. Не хочешь же ты, чтобы тебя все дразнили Соней?
Adults think everything is so simple. As if sound sleep would ensure my classmates would like me. I covered myself with a blanket up to my neck and listened to the house humming, to something invisible rustling in the corners. My inner voice had a question for me. Do I want to hear that mysterious flute again? Yes or no? Maybe it's just a part of growing up, and I can't fully understand my own desires. The forest wailed behind the barrier that was my walls. Some ethereal entity wandered the fields. Branches shook, as if calling for me. The wind howled on and on in the night. My thoughts were like annoying flies that entered my head before becoming weak and tangled. I didn't notice how I fell into slumber. True Detective 1 is the achievement, okay. It has come, after all. The day I feared the most. The first day of a new school term. Ooh. Well, that was it for episode 1. I'm going to save here. And then go to the menu, because that was enough for today, obviously. Yes, I saved, honey. So in the end, I did know the whole chapter. I don't fully remember if the streamer I watched also chose to fiddle with the TV rather than just getting the tape. Quite spooky there. And also sorry if anyone was bothered by the flashing images. For me it was already a bit uncomfortable. So, what do you think so far? Is something strange really happening in that forest? Or is it really just Anton's imagination, medication, his troubled mind? I mean, it can always be both, right? But yeah, as always, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Please leave me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. And yeah, I will check the audio later. And there's not much I can do because I still have some trouble with my editing. So I have to keep it as is. For this recording, I mean, I will probably try to adjust it some more for next time. But yeah, that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye bye!